Today I want to talk about what you should charge for a private gig. What's up, everybody? Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world, here with another Comedy Tip Tuesday. As always, before we get started, I'm just going to ask that you like the video, comment if you have any questions, and please subscribe. Actually, comment even if you don't have any questions. Just say, "What's up, Ty? Loving the video." Whatever you want to say something just so the algorithm knows that people are paying attention. Anyway, I do want to talk about what I said I want to talk about, but first, I'm going to get to a couple of questions. So the first one comes from Annette Simmons. Annette says, "I'm very new to the scene. Do you ever worry about accidentally saying a joke that has been done before? One of my biggest fears is that some of my jokes have been said. I never do that on purpose, but it's impossible to know since I'm not a joke encyclopedia. I'm trying to get over that fear." Been loving the podcast, by the way. Thank you so much, Annette. So to answer your question, I really don't worry about that too much myself, because the way that it usually works out is I probably won't do anything that's the kind of material that anybody else would be doing, because a lot of my stuff is autobiographical. And so the way I usually deal with that is if I do decide to try a joke that's, like I said, either topical or something that's in the public sphere and anybody could say it, I will try to add something to that idea or a spin to the idea that nobody else has. And I don't mind when this happens and when me and another person have the same premise or the same idea usually, because the way that it usually works with stand-up is that one of you it's really going to resonate with, and that person will completely take over that joke, and it doesn't have to be in any kind of argumentative way or anything like that. It's just a matter of the way that they do the joke. And so at that point, usually the other comic will kind of concede, even if non-verbally, and just be like, "Okay, well, that's clearly your joke. Like, you made it your own. You gave it such a spin that I'm not going to be able to outdo that. So why should I continue to do the joke?" And I've had that happen with me and other people, where in some cases they've decided not to do the joke anymore because they knew that I had overtaken that lane, or I decided not to do the joke anymore because the way they did it was just so perfect that I was like, I don't really see how I'm going to do that better. But I wouldn't really worry about that. Most people aren't really going to make that big of a deal of that kind of stuff, and most comics get how it goes. So, you know what, Annette? Just do your stuff, work on your stuff, try to be as original as possible, try to add your own spin to anything, and good luck to you. Thank you for watching the podcast. Thank you for paying attention to Comedy Tip Tuesdays. I definitely do appreciate that, and I do appreciate the question, because I think a lot of newer comics do have that question. Sater Gray has a question. I like Sater a lot. She's been performing in Vegas quite a bit, but I think she's actually a Washington comedian. Anyway, Sater says, "Hey, love, how do comedians align themselves with causes important to them? And is this an ethical way to promote oneself as a comedian?" You know what, Sater? I actually, to answer part of that question, I think anything's an ethical way to promote yourself as a comedian, as long as you're being ethical in the way that you're doing it. Like, if it's a cause that you truly do support, then I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, people get sponsorships when it comes to them actually making money, and nobody has a problem with that. So I don't see why anybody should have a problem with a comedian deciding to align themselves with the cause that they believe in. This is something I try to do with the Trevor Project, which the Trevor Project is an LGBT organization that helps with suicide prevention. That's the best way I can put it. They didn't necessarily want to be aligned with me. This was years ago. They thought I was too edgy for their brand, and I get that. I think I could have helped them a lot, and I think I could have brought a lot of visibility, especially since at that time I was doing an LGBT specific tour, but they chose not to work with me, and that's their business. I don't hold anything against them on that, even though, like I said, I do think that I could have helped them out. And the way I would go about doing that is just by actually doing some bits in a set that maybe let that particular organization know that, you know, you have some personal experience with whatever the cause is, and send them that, and then say, "Hey, this is what I do. This is what I talk about. This is why I want to be involved with your organization. This is what I like about your organization," and see where it goes from there. Most organizations that I've dealt with will at least return a message. And when I did my comedy festival, the Laughed Out Comedy Festival here in Las Vegas back in 2020, we were aligned with the LGBT Center, and that was really great for us, and it was great for them, and I don't see anything wrong with that at all. Trevor James sent in a quick question. He said, any advice on technique for crying in the car? Sometimes I have a hard time seeing because of the tears. I know Trevor James personally, and I hate him. The reason he asked that question is because last week I said that I had a gig so bad once that I cried in the car. And I'm going to tell you honestly, Trevor James, I would just say worry about the safety of others. And if you can and you're a little bit too blurry, try to drive off of a cliff or off of a mountain or into a wall, somewhere where you're not going to hurt other people. Like, that's what I would say on that. I don't have a technique for really making sure that your eyes don't get blurry, because mine get blurry too, and I just feel like, it's people's problem if they want to be on the road with me. But that answers your question, Trevor, and we're done with questions for the week. I hope that everybody isn't as sassy as Trevor, but it is what it is, and like I said, I'll answer pretty much any question. Sometimes I'll answer them in the comments, but this time I felt like all of those, including Trevor's, deserve to be answered here on Comedy Tip Tuesdays. So here's the deal. I wanted to talk about how to decide what it is you should charge if you're asked to do a show, only because a comedian friend of mine posted that on Facebook not too long ago, where she was wondering what she should charge to do like a private party. And I had suggested that she charge $500 because she is newer. She's just getting her feet wet. She's just getting started. And this was something like a birthday party, I think she said. And a lot of times, what I would do first before I shoot an offer at all is I'll usually ask them what their budget is, because sometimes you can screw yourself, because a lot of people have deep pockets or really love comedy. And so maybe they're willing to pay $1,000. So why should you shoot yourself in the foot and say you want $500 when you could ask them what their budget is and go from there? Also, on the other side, sometimes people don't have a realistic idea of what it is they should pay for a comedy show. So they'll be talking about something really low, like $100. And at that point, you can either decide to do that or decide not to do it. I personally wouldn't do it for that little bit of money, especially since you consider that sometimes people think that they want you as a comedian, and I'm not putting anybody down. Like, they really do want you as a comedian. But what they don't understand is that they want something that's at least a little bit closer to a show. Just because if you go up cold to a birthday party, you don't know anybody there, you're not part of the family, you're not part of the crew, then a lot of times they're going to treat you a little bit like an outsider, and you're not necessarily going to have the best result. You're not going to be seen in the best light, and you're probably not going to like the situation yourself. So really what they want is something a little more similar to a show. So I would bring at least one, if not two other comedians with me. And so a lot of times, to help people figure that out, if they're not really understanding why you're charging what you're charging, then break it down for them and let them know, hey, I have to have another comedian come along with me because I personally don't think it gives the best experience to just have me go out and do comedy. I want somebody to at least open up. And so if you charge $500, then you can give $200 to your friend who's going to open for you, and then you can keep $300 for yourself. And to me, that's a decent budget for a birthday party or a birthday show. Not too long ago, I was doing one birthday show, which was for a dispensary, and they were like $1,000 a comic is what they were willing to pay, and they wanted 3 of us. So that gives you an idea of, sometimes, like I said, you should just ask them what their budget is, because I didn't actually broker that deal myself. Another comedian friend of mine handled that, and that's what he did. He just asked them what their budget was. They told him. He was like, okay, I can get you some quality comics. This is the way we'll set it up, and that's the way it worked out. I know some people don't really worry about money like that, so just adjust the budget to what it is you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable getting $300 and maybe, you get $150 and then $75 to another friend and then $75 to another friend, and you give them a show of 3 people, then that's fine too. But just work out the math and make sure that you're comfortable with what it is you're getting paid for your time in that particular situation. Sometimes, though, I know that birthday parties can be very traumatic. I've been to birthday party shows that were, in somebody's living room and not necessarily the most professional. Also, make sure you ask questions like, do they have a sound system? Do they have a microphone? Because if you have to bring that, there's a chance you're either going to have to rent that, or maybe you just own your own sound system like PA. But if you don't own that, then you're going to find yourself sometimes incurring costs because you're going to have to rent one. And if you feel at all obligated because you've already said that you're going to do it for this much, so maybe include that too in what it is you're charging. That way they can understand. And don't be afraid to politely decline. If you guys just can't meet up on what you think the numbers should be, and you're like, well, I really want to do this gig, like, if it's not financially worth it, or you can't afford to take the hit if you're going to have to incur some cost yourself, then I would just politely say, maybe I'm not the best comic for this. Maybe talk to someone else. Maybe one of the other comics that you saw the same night you saw me would be interested in doing it. Or maybe somebody that already has that equipment and is willing to do it. Also, don't be afraid to ask some of your friends that are bookers and promoters if they have a sound system that you can borrow. I know that there's some comics here in Vegas that run multiple shows and have more than one sound system. And if they have an extra sound system available on a particular night, a lot of times comics and bookers are cool like that. And if you're a trustworthy person and they know you're a responsible person, will let you actually use their equipment. So I wouldn't be ashamed or afraid to ask somebody if you could just use their equipment and explain to them what it is you're doing. Who knows? Maybe that can be one of the people that you bring along for the gig. Maybe you can just be like, because like I said, a 2-person show is for me a minimum of what I'm going to do. But a lot of times I want a 3-person show just to give them an actual experience, and so that I can have opener, feature, and then headliner. So that's the way I do it. But like I said, if you choose to listen to me on none of this and just do what you want to do, at least I gave you some idea of the way that I and some people I know do it. And I don't judge what you do either way. Just create the path that you're trying to create to get to where you're going. That's what I would say is the most important thing. And I hope this episode of Comedy Tip Tuesdays has been helpful for you guys. If you can, please do leave a comment, like the video, and make sure that you subscribe to my channel. I really do appreciate it. I really do hate this ring light. I'm going to buy another one like the one I had before, but that has nothing to do with this particular episode of Comedy Tip Tuesday, which I keep saying Comedy Tip Tuesdays, but apparently that's because I'm ghetto and I don't know how branding works. Anyway, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.